Would you like to start? Would you like to start? Would you like to start?
This movie is called The Substance, and it is a feminist body horror movie. And I was like, interesting. Stacked cast. Director is Coralie Fargeau. It's one of those. It's French, so. Let's do a little breakdown. Let's see what some of the symbolism is. And up next, let's talk about The Substance.
I'm fine. Everything's fine.
So a star is being constructed on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for Elizabeth Sparkle. But this is a great sequence. It shows kind of her rise and fall in popularity. The beginning is her at her star. Everybody's like, we love you, taking pictures, red carpet event, we love that. To present day, somebody dropping a cheeseburger on it and just like rubbing it around, and it's cracked and old and nobody cares about it anymore. Cut to our star, Elizabeth Sparkle, who is played by Demi Moore, and she is a host of a fitness aerobics show. She's walking down this hallway and everybody's wishing her happy birthday, and she says thank you guys. And on the walls of this hallway are all pictures of her throughout the years. So this hallway is actually very symbolic too, and we will get to that later. But sadly, later in the day, she is having dinner with her misogynist host, Harvey, played impeccably by Dennis Quaid. And this scene that she is getting fired is so hard for me to watch because I cannot listen to people eat. I think there's like a phobia or something where people can't stand the sound of like the juices and the mwah, mwah. I can't do it. I'm pretty sure I have that. But I sat there and I was like, man, I am going to walk out of this movie right now. But she gets fired. So she's driving home and she's looking up and she sees one of her billboards, and her billboard is getting ripped down. So basically everything that can go wrong is going wrong. And then she gets in a car accident. So she gets fired, billboards ripped down, and she gets in this awful car accident. While she's at the doctor's, he checks her out, says, okay, you look great. And so the doctor at the hospital wishes her a happy birthday, and she breaks down crying. I would probably cry too. He gets all flustered and leaves because he doesn't know how to deal with that, obviously. And the nurse checks her backbone, and he's like, you'd be a great candidate. And she's like, candidate? What? And he slips a hard drive in the pocket of her jacket with a note wrapped around it. The hard drive says The Substance, and the note says, it changed my life. So she's leaving the hospital, and she sees an old friend from middle school or something named Fred. And Fred is so happy to see her. He's kind of a geek. He's geeking out over seeing her, and he writes his number down for her to give him a call. So she's like, oh, that's sweet. And she leaves. She gets home, and Elizabeth pops in the USB drive and watches the video. It promotes a serum that, when injected, creates a younger, more beautiful, more perfect version of you. But you two are still one being. Elizabeth would be the Matrix. And then the rules of this is 1 week on, 1 week off. They would swap living their life. And it sets out very distinct rules. So now we know this is the universe. These are the rules, and they obviously should not be broken. Elizabeth decides to order it. She goes to the CD pickup area and then goes home. She opens up the box. It has the activator, these feeding tubes, and this scene where she's in the bathroom completely butt naked, standing in front of the mirror. She injects the bright green activator into herself, and I mean, just seeing the bright green activator is already jarring because you're like, that stuff is toxic. You already know. And you guys, this is where it starts. Her eyeball splits into two. And then her back literally opens. I don't want to go into too much detail, but man, this sequence was pretty wild. Demi Moore, like, oh God, what a fantastic actress. Out pops her little perfect something replica, Sue. Oh, Sue is going through everything. And what keeps Sue alive as her double is a stabilizer serum that's extracted from the spine of Elizabeth. So Elizabeth is unconscious on the floor because her consciousness now is inside Sue. So Sue extracts the stabilizer, and she injects a stabilizer into herself once a day to keep herself going. They're going to switch bodies in this world. 1 week on, 1 week off every 7 days without exception. One will be resting unconsciously and the other one will be out living her best life in the world. So we all know there's an opening for Elizabeth's job. Sue goes and she's auditioning and everybody loves her. Harvey absolutely loves her and she is enjoying her hot girl summer fantasy. She's just running around, being hot in her apartment, living her best life. She had an amazing first week. Then it's back to her original body, the Matrix, Elizabeth. When they do the switch back, Elizabeth settles back in and they don't really show us what she's doing. She doesn't really do much in her original body, and I think that says a lot to show that she doesn't value herself in her original body anymore now that she's lived as Sue. She does her week, she eats, she cleans, picks up some supplies, and she's basically wasting time until she can go be Sue again. Sue returns, and she sees that Elizabeth did absolutely nothing with her time. She is so annoyed, she decided to do a build out in the bathroom so she can hide Elizabeth's body while she's not using it. She does this crazy construction, and her neighbor across the way is very angry and goes banging on her door. He's expecting to see Elizabeth sparkle, but when Sue answers, his entire demeanor changes instantly. And I think this was a very clever way to show the real life pretty privilege. You know, he wasn't expecting a beautiful girl, but right when he did, he was like, oh, I can help you do whatever you want. It's great that you're here. But when it was Elizabeth, he has no use for her. He doesn't care about her. She's an older woman. So this is the perfect example of pretty privilege and how men treat older women when they feel like they have no use for them. When we return to the hallway of Elizabeth's previous job, Sue's new job, that beautiful orange hallway, all of the photos of Elizabeth are gone. And there's just one photo of Sue hanging on the wall. And I also think that this was a beautiful demonstration of how Elizabeth now is in the past. She's nowhere to be seen. And this is the birth of the new girl, Sue. Sue is about to pass her 1 week mark and she needs to switch, but she decides to go out and party instead. When she brings home a man, they are sitting and getting handsy on the couch. Sue's nose begins to bleed and she starts to get these really awful headaches. And the stabilizer is wearing off. So she runs to Elizabeth, takes an extra day of stabilizer. Now we know this is the rule. You cannot do that or there will be consequences. And she decides to stay out one more night. So when she does come back, her finger is decomposed and old and it looks almost like a witch finger. Elizabeth is so upset, she calls the substance supplier and she tries to complain about Sue, that she is not respecting the laws. But no, girl, you and Sue are one. And basically, what is done cannot be undone. So she can never go back. So because of the choice that she made, she will have to live with that finger forever. So Elizabeth decides she's going to have some fun. And she's going to go out with that nice guy, Fred, that she saw. She calls him up. He's very surprised that she calls. And they plan a date for that night. So as she's getting ready, she looks gorgeous in the mirror. She has this beautiful red dress on. And she's going to leave. And she sees Sue. And she's just heartbroken. Just the feeling of inadequacy and her self-esteem just starts to drop there. So she puts on more makeup. And she tries to cover up after seeing Sue's young body. And when she's going to leave again, the billboard outside her apartment has Sue on it. And she just cannot bring herself to go out and see Fred. She has a breakdown in the mirror and decides to stay in. And he sits and he messages her. And she decides at that point that she is not worthy of going out. So Elizabeth gets depressed. And she starts to just eat and drink and sit on the couch and do nothing. When Sue comes back, she is disgusted with how the apartment looks. So Sue is starting to break the rules more and stays out longer than she should. When that happens, Elizabeth is slowly withering away. So the next time Elizabeth comes to, her leg is withered and looks awful. Elizabeth contacts a supplier again, who tells her that she can terminate the substance. Elizabeth says, well, she's too far gone. She can't cancel it. She doesn't want to cancel it yet. She still wants to live as Sue. This time, when they switch back, the place is completely trashed. Sue has a breakdown. She says, no more. And then she goes and she drains Elizabeth completely of any stabilizer fluid that is in her backbone. Around 3 months worth. So while Sue is having a great time in these 3 months, she books the job. She's going to get to host the New Year's Eve party, which is the biggest show on TV. The day comes, Sue runs out of stabilizer solution. So she calls the substance supplier and asks what to do. And they say, once you switch back, we'll start building up the stabilizer solution in the matrix Elizabeth's body. So you have to switch. There is no question, you have to continue going. So she switches. Elizabeth comes back as a goblin hunchback. I am not even exaggerating. This is where I was like, oh man, this is where the movie's gonna start getting crazy. Elizabeth looks at herself in the mirror. It's not even her. Her hair's gone. You would not be able to recognize her. She's a monster. And she decides this is it. She tries to cover up her body the best she can. She calls the substance supplier and she orders the termination serum. She will not let Sue do this to her anymore, even though Sue and her are one consciousness. Elizabeth gets back home and stares at Sue. She stabs the termination serum in her, and that's it. But then Elizabeth has a change of heart, and she thinks she's not ready to let go. So she decides to try to wake her up and save her. So she revives Sue, and this is the first time Elizabeth and Sue are both conscious at the same time. When Sue looks over and she sees the termination serum, she freaks out and she attacks Elizabeth. They have this crazy fight around the apartment, and Sue kills Elizabeth. Elizabeth is dead. So Sue's like, oh my gosh, well, time to go host that New Year's Eve party. So she goes to her job. They dress her up in this beautiful blue gown. This kind of reminded me of Cinderella, the way she was dressed. She looks absolutely gorgeous. But she starts to break down. And now there's no stabilizer solution because Elizabeth is dead. Sue has this awful moment where her teeth are falling out and she's staring into the mirror. So she runs back to her apartment trying to figure out what is she going to do. In a bid to save herself, Sue tries to create a new version of herself with leftover activator. We all know that is a big no-no. That was one of the rules. You can only activate once. So when Sue tries to activate herself, the cells split, and they keep splitting. The first time we see Elizabeth's eye split into two, this time Sue's eye splits into a bunch of eyes, and the cells won't stop mutating. So instead of creating one perfect counterpart, she turns herself into Monstrous Eliza Sue, and she looks absolutely hideous. Elizabeth's original face is like somewhere on her shoulder. She's decrepit. It's just wild. This is when things start going insane in the movie. She looks at herself in the mirror and she's like, okay. She puts on jewelry. She tries to curl her one piece of hair and it falls out. She takes a poster of Elizabeth, cuts out the face, puts it on top of her face, and tries to put lipstick on it. Obviously, it doesn't work. So she heads down to the live broadcast, gets on stage in front of the live audience, and everybody is just staring at her. I almost look at her when she's comfortable to step on stage as her monstrous self, that she's like, this is me. This is who I am. I'm comfortable with myself. And the audience is like, ew, gross. You're comfortable with how you look? That's disgusting. You need to get back in your hole. And this is one of the most grotesque moments. She literally just grows and births a boob on stage. This movie started getting kind of crazy at this point. The audience screams. Everybody is terrified looking at her. And she's under the spotlight and she's just like, you guys, it's me. It's me. And they all start beating on her. Somebody basically decapitates her and blood just starts spraying all over the audience. This was such a bloody, insane scene. I could not believe it. After all this, she falls back and she basically explodes. Now, Elizabeth's face, the original that was on the back of her, is still a blob, and it drags itself to her Walk of Fame star, and she's looking at the stars, just having a moment, and she slowly dissolves into her Hollywood star. The next day, her bloody remains are scrubbed up by a floor scrubber. Yeah. I've heard a lot of different things about this movie. I loved it. I know it's gory. I know it's gratuitous. I know it's wild and crazy and out there. But the message, she did it so brilliantly, and it's hit so close to home for so many women. This feminist body horror, ooh, she nailed it. I cannot wait to see what she does next. Mwah! Chef's kiss on The Substance. I love this. What did you guys think about The Substance? And have you seen it yet? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.